Hi, welcome to the last segment of Module 2, Individual Demand. We recommend to read Chapter 4 of the textbook to review this segment. What will we cover in this segment? You will learn how to use and interpret a demand curve, and we will talk about the law of demand. We start with how to use a demand curve. Both a demand schedule and a demand curve assign demanded quantities to various prices. The demand schedule here shows my personal behavior for our class experiment. If the price is 0, I would demand 8 cans of Coke. In case the price increases to 50 cents, my demand would be 6. For $1, I would demand 5 cans of Coke. For $1.50, I would demand 4 cans of Coke. For $2, I would demand 1 can of Coke. And if the price is higher than $3, I would not demand any can of Coke. You can see here that the demand schedule assigns a quantity demanded to each of the listed prices in the left column. If you take a look at the diagram at the right side of the demand schedule, you will find the demand curve which we developed with the program we discussed in the previous segment. And the demand curve actually reflects my personal demand behavior based on the data in the demand schedule. Why don't we take a closer look at the demand curve? From the demand schedule we can see if the price is 2, my demand would be 1. What will the demand curve tell us? We pick a price of 2 on the vertical axis, and then we draw a straight line until we reach the demand curve. We go straight down from that point all the way to the horizontal axis, and at the horizontal axis we find 2, which means a quantity demanded of 2 cans of Coke. Bottom line, the demand curve tells us if the price is 2, my personal demand would be 2 cans of Coke. There is actually discrepancy here between the demand schedule, which says my demand is 1, and the demand curve, which says my demanded quantity is 2. But don't forget, the demand curve is only a straight line which estimates my demand behavior, and therefore it can't be always precise. Why don't we see if it is better if we consider other prices? If the price is $1.50, my demand is 4. What will the demand curve tell us? Again, we pick $1.50 at the vertical price axis, draw a horizontal line until we reach the demand curve. From there we go straight down until we hit the horizontal axis for the quantity demanded, and we can see now the quantity demanded is 3.6, 3.7, that's pretty close to 4. So a way better estimate here. If the price is 1, the demand schedule shows that my personal demand for Coke would be 5 cans of Coke. Actually, the demand curve will show almost the same. We choose 1 for the price of 1 on the vertical axis, draw a horizontal line until we reach the demand curve, go straight down and reach exactly a quantity demanded of 5. For a price of 50 cents, the demand schedule shows that the demanded quantity is 6. To see the result for the demand curve, we again pick on the vertical axis the price, in this case it's 50 cents, and we move all the way horizontally until we reach the demand curve, go straight down, and we'll find that the demand curve leads to the same result, a demanded quantity of 6 cans of Coke. In case the price is 0, it's a little bit more tricky because we pick the price of 0, which is actually the same height than the axis, Then we go horizontally along the axis until we reach the demand curve, which is actually where the demand curve intersects with the axis, and we see that the demanded quantity is 8, which coincides with the demand schedule. The demand curve has an advantage compared to the demand schedule. We can show that when we ask the question, what is the demanded quantity if the price is $1.75? The demand schedule does not give us an answer. We could calculate it, but the demand curve is way more convenient here. We pick $1.75 on the axis, then we go to the demand curve, go straight down, and as a result we get 2.6 cans of Coke. As economists, we always ask if what we are doing is efficient. Therefore, we should ask ourselves, is it necessary to use the tools of the demand curve and or the demand schedule? Maybe it is easier to express demand behavior verbally, rather than with the tools of the demand curve and the demand schedule. Let's give it a trial. I will express the demand behavior shown in the demand schedule and in the diagram in a verbal way. Dr. Lang would demand 8 cans of Coke if Coke is free. In case it cost 50 cents, he would demand 6 cans. In case the price increases to $1, he would demand only 5 cans. For a price of $1.50 or a price of 2, he would demand 4 and 1 can respectively. He's not willing to pay $3 or more. Consequently, his demand is 0 if the price is $3 or greater. Yeah, this is not that great to describe a demand behavior. So you see actually our demand schedule and our demand curve, although we have to develop them in the first place, are eventually a way easier way to express demand behavior. Here's another question. We said that the demand schedule as well as the demand curve always assign demanded quantities to prices. For example, if the price is 1, the demanded quantity would be 5. If the price increases to 1.50, the demanded quantity would be 4. So does this mean the price always determines the quantity demanded? The answer is yes. This is the direction of the argumentation. Economists call it the causality. Price causes quantity demanded. Again, does this mean one cannot reverse the argument and start with the quantity demanded? The answer is yes. Never change the causality. Quantity demanded never causes the price. And we can show that with an example which will not make a lot of sense if we start with the quantity demanded. Like in the example before, the price is 1, the quantity demanded is 5 initially. Now we start with this ridiculous argument, and that shows that it is wrong to start with the quantity demanded. So since this is my personal demand behavior, this would mean if I reduce my demand for Coke from 5 cans to 4 cans, this would cause an increase of the market price from $1 to $1.50. This makes no sense at all, because I can't influence the market price. I am just one of a lot demanders. And if I change my demand behavior, the market would not even recognize that. Remember, this is the reason why we call demanders price takers. Therefore, please keep in mind, never start your argument with the price and go to the demand. In the graphic it means never start your argument on the horizontal axis if you talk about demand and go to the price. always start with the price, always start with the vertical axis. The last topic we will cover in this module is the law of demand. The law of demand states that there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. More specific, if the price increases, the quantity demanded decreases. Take a look at the demand schedule and you can see it. If we increase the price, the demanded quantity will decrease. On the other side, if the price decreases, the quantity demanded increases. This is also reflected in the demand schedule. A decreasing price leads to a higher quantity demanded. Just look at your own behavior. This is what we all do. Lower price leads to higher demand. A higher price leads to lower demand. What is the connection between the law of demand and the demand curve? The law of demand is actually reflected by a falling demand curve. I will again use a diagram to explain this fact. This diagram with a falling demand curve is different than the diagram we derived before because it has no numbers at the side. Sometimes we don't have enough information. We don't know about prices, we don't know about demanded quantities. Therefore, we are not able to write numbers on the axis. The question is, will the diagram help us at all? Yes, it will. Because even if there are no numbers on the axis, we can get some information. Let's start with the price axis, with the vertical axis. We don't know which point is assigned to which price. But we know the higher we are on this axis, the higher will be the price. This gives us the opportunity to compare prices. If the position of a price is higher on the price axis, it will represent a higher price. How can we distinguish prices if we don't have numbers? We use as an abbreviation P like price, and then we write a small number on the lower right hand side of the P. For example, 0 to show the first price we talk about and 1 to show about the next price we talk about. If you prefer, you can use letters like A and B or like O, showing that's the original price, and N to show that this is a new price. It is all a matter of taste. What is important is that the higher the position of the price is on the vertical axis, the higher is the price represented by the letter or by the point. Almost the same is true for the horizontal axis representing the quantity demanded. Because we don't know which are the quantities, because we don't have numbers, we use letters. Usually we use QD to present quantity demanded or D like demanded. To distinguish between different quantities demanded, we write little indices on the right lower corner of the letter. Please always remember the following. On the right hand side of the axis we will find the big numbers. On the left hand side of the horizontal axis we will find the 0 and the small numbers. Therefore, the further right the position on the horizontal axis is, the higher is the quantity represented by this position. All this will be way easier to understand when we use an example. Remember, one way to understand the law of demand was that an increasing price will lead to a decreasing quantity demanded. Why don't we try it? First, we just pick any price on the vertical axis. We name this price P0 to distinguish it from other prices. Like before, we draw a horizontal line until we reach the demand curve, go straight down until we reach the horizontal axis, but we don't find a number here. Instead, we mark the point with the quantity demanded, and to show that the quantity demanded we mark here belongs to the price P0, we call the quantity demanded D0. Now we want to figure out what happens if the price increases. Therefore, we have to select a higher price. A higher price must be above P0, higher in the geometrical sense. So we pick any price which is higher than P0. We name this price P1. We go, like before, horizontally until we reach the demand curve. Go straight down until we reach the horizontal axis. Again, we don't find a number here, but we label the point D1 to show that D1 belongs to P1. What can we see? We can see that D1 is smaller than D0, which means the quantity demanded decreased. Why is D1 smaller than D0? Because it is further to the left than D0. It is closer to the small numbers than D0. Now, after we have all these arrows of increasing and decreasing in our diagram, we can see actually the bottom line. If the price increases from P0 to P1, the quantity demanded will decrease from D0 to D1. We showed that a falling demand curve reflects the law of demand, and we used the price increase to prove that this is right. On the next slides, you have the opportunity to prove the same for a falling price. What did you learn in this segment? You learned how to use a demand curve. First, you choose a price on the vertical axis, then you move horizontally to the demand curve, you move straight down to the horizontal axis, and the point you reach at the horizontal axis is the quantity demanded, which goes with the price you chose previously. We also covered causality, which is the direction of the argument. It is very important to remember that the causality always goes from the price to the quantity demanded. It is the price which influences quantity demanded and never the other way around. Therefore, you always start your argument at the price axis and you never start your argument at the quantity axis. Finally, just now, you learned about the law of demand. The law of demand means if the price increases, the quantity demanded decreases. And if the price decreases, the quantity demanded will increase.